Good morning, everyone, brothers and sisters on the path. Hope wherever you are, it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever it is, that you're feeling okay and at peace. We're going to start with a little meditation, one I've done before, but it's one that I like a lot. So we'll do this. I'll have a few moments of silence. We are a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. We will keep our link bright and strong. We will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than ourselves. We will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain peace. May we all attain peace. Thank you, everyone. Today I'm going to do a talk called Awakening to the True Self, which we should all be trying to do. And because in this crazy world, most people are sleepwalking through their transient lives, never once waking up to who and what they truly are, beyond the shifting shadows of time that hold them captive. Time does hold us captive. We are ruled by it. To be honest, it is of course essential to be aware of time, to function in a world where time dictates our lives. But if we could spend just a little time away from it, our world perception would change. A 60s song from the American band The Association says, "I took off my watch and found I had all the time in the world." There are so many masks that keep us from awakening to our true self. Our minds are absorbed in everyday affairs, as the whole of society is based upon the fact that there is only one life, and all that matters is gearing everything to that one life, and making everything fit into those few years we are in this incarnation. I've heard it's 30,000 days is an average of how long we live, and it passes so quickly. So most people never see the bigger picture, and death is something that is shut out of the minds of most people, who live as if there is no such thing until it is very close. And perhaps in some ways this is the right way to go about things, as to constantly be thinking about death can be debilitating. Living in the present moment is a basic teaching of Theosophy and all true spiritual traditions of the East and the West. But if people were to be aware of the beauty of so-called death, then this would set their minds on a completely different course. Rumi, the Sufi teacher, says, "I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear? Why was I less by dying?" And as HPB wrote, death is ever a friend and deliverer to our spiritual selves. And she also says, from strength to strength, from the beauty and perfection of one plane to the greater beauty and perfection of another, with accessions of new glory, of fresh knowledge and power in each cycle. Such is the destiny of every ego, which thus becomes its own saviour in each world and incarnation. End of quote. So can we make friends with death and see that it is part of our ongoing journey that has no foreseeable end, and that ahead of us lie wonders that we cannot comprehend at this moment? Instead of seeing death as an end, can we not see it as a beginning? Everything is a beginning if we have the right attitude to life. Every time we open our eyes in the morning, it is a new beginning, in a lesser degree, a fresh incarnation. In Japan, there's the concept of ichigo ichie, which signifies that every time we meet someone or encounter something, it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that will never be repeated, even if it is seeing your family or friends. And therefore, there is a great beauty in intuitively knowing that you and they are eternal beings for whom the hour will never strike. So let us face death with excitement, perhaps, or calmness, and the expectancy of more wonderful experiences ahead. Again, HPB writes, whatever plane our consciousness may be acting in, both we and the things belonging to that plane are, for the time being, our only realities. As we rise in the scale of development, we perceive that during the stages through which we have passed, we mistook shadows for realities. And the upward progress of the ego is a series of progressive awakenings, each advance bringing us, and with it, the idea that now, at last, we have reached reality, but only when we shall have reached the absolute consciousness and blended our own with it, shall we be free from the delusions produced by Maya, which is illusion. End of quote. Our view of reality changes due to the limitations of our perceptive qualities. If we look at what we think of reality using intellectual concepts, then we may think we know what it is and gain some dim view of things. But that is far from the truth. We may imagine that we have awoken from the dream. Novalis, the German writer, poet, and philosopher, said, our life is no dream, but it should and will perhaps become one. Whilst we are in this incarnation, it seems that we are living the only reality. Life certainly does not seem like a dream or an illusion to us. Everything appears solid, and our joys and pains don't seem to be unreal. When we dream, it is as if we are watching a film on a screen, a long way from the world that we experience in a waking state. So from that premise, how can we accept that this world is the dream, and that all we see or seem is but a dream within a dream, as Edgar Allan Poe said? When we love and truly love, does that love soar beyond the confines of what we know and understand? Is our appreciation of beauty something that can take us into realms that are not limited by our comprehension of who and what we are in a limited sense? Love and beauty are present, it seems, on all levels of our being, with a progressive appreciation and absorption of the reality at that level. Material ideas and concepts come and go, but love and beauty will accompany us on our journey. But what we think of as love on this level may be completely different on another level of being. It may indeed become our very being on a higher level, and a higher plane of existence, as the disharmonies of the lower planes melt into harmonious communication between us, between human beings and all creatures. So we think of love on this plane, it's a kind of idea, we have a concept, but we don't know what it is on a higher level of being, how it manifests. on a different level. But some people may argue that beauty can be a distraction, but it all depends upon our definition of beauty. Plotinus, in his treatise on beauty, bases his ideas on the fact that beauty is an abstract concept that manifests in many ways, while still remaining impersonal in essence. Beauty is beauty, whatever masks it wears, and true beauty proceeds from the spiritual side of our nature. It is the glimmering of the spirit within us or around us. And if we learn to read the message of beauty, it can become our guiding star through all the trials and temptations of life. For in all the manifestations of beauty, there is a hidden message that, as Plotinus says, only lovers will ever find. When he says lovers, he refers not to lovers in a sentimental or sensual sense, but those who have nurtured within themselves an inexpressible yearning to go out towards the infinite and have reached that point in their lives when it has become the one essential thing, a line of life, meditation. We experience beauty in so many ways. Mainly we think of it as pertaining to the sense of sight, but we also find beauty in music, poetry, painting, as well as in traits of character, in someone, or intellectual beauty. And as Plotinus says, the beauty of virtue, or deeper still, we become aware of spiritual beauty, which is the essence of all. Oneness is the basic teaching of Theosophy. Separateness is the keynote of this material world we live in. Separateness, the great dire heresy that weans us from the rest, as the voice of the silence tells us. As long as we suffer under the illusion of separateness, we will never awaken to our true self. There's a vast difference between an intellectual acceptance of oneness and an actual experience of it. Intellectually, one can become angry or frustrated at those who don't accept it and whose reactions are negative towards it. This is because the lower ego predominates in you and me as much as them. And we fail to have a first-hand insight into their divine nature, which is overshadowed by their material nature. So we need to train ourselves to at least become aware of that nature and to train our intellect to accept that behind the facade there is the divinity that we all share. The limitations of the intellect run through our lives and can create doubts, as all its knowledge is second-hand and does not come from first-hand experience. I often say it's like a strawberry. I've used this many times. You don't really know what a strawberry tastes like until you pop it into your mouth, or anything, a banana or an apple or an orange. You don't know what they're like until you pop them into your mouth. No one can convey that taste to you. You can go to strawberry lectures. You can look at YouTube videos about strawberries. You can read books about them, but you won't know until you put that strawberry into your mouth. So no one can convey that taste to you. They can describe it in positive ways that make it sound attractive and inspire you to try it for yourself. But the proof of the strawberry is in the eating. So that's the same with spirituality. We can have signposts, pointers, but we have to experience it for ourselves. And books and teachings give us those pointers, but they don't give us spirituality. I often say it's like walking across the moors. If you head into a certain place, you will need signposts, otherwise you become totally lost. But you have to do the walking for yourself. The signposts just point the way. That's what the teachings do. So Theosophy teaches us about death and all the intermediate stages before rebirth, which we accept because we should have faith in our teachers, not blind faith, but enlightened faith, and those who claim to have been through these states and remembered them. That is all we have at our present stage of being. We don't actually know, but we trust in the words of those who do know. Some of us may have had personal experiences to prove to them the reality of life after death, but in most cases, in talks, we just repeat what we have read until the time when we know for ourselves and the mystery is solved. Rumi again states, "This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief." You wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. So the reference is always to sleeping, dreaming, and awakening, as above, so below. Once we take the stance that we are eternal beings, all fear dissipates like the mist before the morning sun, and we see that this life is just one chapter in the never-ending story of our existence. Yes, there is also a sadness at passing from this particular life and all the people and places we have become attached to. The Japanese again have the expression mono no aware, which points to the poignancy and yet the beauty of life. But those who truly love are never really lost, and we will surely meet again in a future incarnation. We've probably met in many incarnations before. True love takes root in the soul, way beyond the emotional and physical love. William Quan Judge, one of the founders of the Theosophical Society, said to his pupils, "Are you so foolish as to believe that we are meeting for the first time?" Who knows, everyone watching this and listening to this, we may have all met in previous incarnations, and many of us definitely will have. We have experiences of meeting people who we feel an immediate connection with on many different levels. Can this also be what we refer to as love at first sight, or the various relationships that are formed very quickly on all different levels? We may know someone for most of our lives and only have a vague connection. On the other hand, we may meet someone and within a few days or hours have formed a deep and lasting relationship with them. Because love is something that was there at the beginning of time in the form of harmony that filtered down through all the planes. In the Theosophical Glossary, there's an entry about Karma Deva. Now, karma, K-A-M-A, not K-A-R-M-A, that's karma or karma. Karma was, in recent times, it's been regarded as being desire. You have the Kama Sutra, of course. But the Theosophical Glossary has something very interesting to say about the origins of this word. Kamadeva being a god in a sense we think of God as being an aspect of our being. In the popular notions, the god of love, of Vishvadeva in the Hindu pantheon, as the Eros of Hesiod, degraded into Cupid by exoteric law, and still more degraded by a later popular sense attributed to the term. So is karma a most mysterious and metaphysical subject. The earlier Vedic description of karma alone gives the keynote to what he emblematizes. Karma is the first conscious, all-embracing desire for universal good, love, and for all that lives and feels, needs help and kindness. The first feeling of infinite tender compassion and mercy that arose in the consciousness of the creative one force as soon as it came into being as a ray from the Absolute. Says the Rig Veda, desire first arose in it, which was the primal germ of mind, which sages, searching with their intellect, have discovered in their heart to be the bond which connects entity with non-entity, or manas with pure Atma Buddhi. There is no idea of sexual love in the conception. Kama is preeminently the divine desire of creating happiness and love. And it is only ages later, as mankind began to materialize by anthropomorphization, its grandest ideals into cut and dry dogmas, that karma became the power that gratifies desire on the animal plane. It's fantastic. The first thing that came into being was this divine, pure love and compassion for all beings, which is reflected in us as above, so below. If we develop within ourselves pure love, we have this infinite feeling of compassion and love for all things, all living things, not just people, all living things. And that's what we attune ourselves to. That's what we're trying to attune ourselves to in this manifested universe. It's an incredible concept. So it's very interesting that this feeling of infinite tender compassion was the first thing that came into being. What a lesson and message that is for humanity. What makes life the way it is man's total misunderstanding of his true nature, which is harmony, love, and compassion. That's the real human. As the Confucians said, when you become enlightened, you become the real human. You become a real human being. All the lower emotions are man-made, and they're perversions of reality, clouds created to obscure the beautiful sun of truth. H.P. Blavatsky tells us that immortality is but one's unbroken consciousness. We imagine death because we haven't reached the state when we realize the ever-living, rather than the illusion of the ever-changing. Our lives are full of ups and downs, twists and turns, and we can use all these to awaken to who we are, to find the immortal dimension to our being, despite all that goes on within and around us. It's like becoming the centre of the storm and seeing what is beyond that storm, because a storm is always limited, and of course, a storm always passes in time. The teaching that echoes down through the ages from the lips of most spiritual teachers and leaders is to love one another. This is the only truly practicable, and only truly practical if we awaken to the oneness of all things. That was the purpose of H.P. Blavatsky and the Master's teachings in the Secret Doctrine. Secret Doctrine was not given out so that we could just gain information about the principles of man, the planet, and the solar system for our own satisfaction. They weren't given out so that we could just gloat in the fact that we understood all these things. They were given out so that we had a solid basis to realize this oneness, so that it wouldn't be based upon vague mysticism or emotionalism. But the aim is to apply what we learn for the good of all. If one takes time to study the works of H.P. Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, Key to Theosophy, Voice of the Silence, and the many articles, this shines through very clearly, as he is the representative of this brotherhood of bodhisattvas that initiated the Theosophical Society. It is through this realization that we can awaken the intuition if we study in the right way, meditating on the words and trying to bring them to life. And that is not to say there are not many other ways to try and reach this understanding, but there's food for many different temperaments. Everyone has a different way of approaching this truth. I found that studying Theosophy helps to throw light on many other systems and gives one discrimination, being able to sort out the wheat from the chaff and know what increases our ability to attune ourselves to the higher self and what alienates us more. The knowledge that must be acquired is, of course, not just intellectual, but knowledge that takes us beyond this mind that we so prize. This is a test to let go of that intellect when we are ready. It becomes a barrier at a certain stage, a comfort zone. And our lives are full of comfort zones in which there is a danger of stagnation. But the real comfort zone is the highest self, which is our Lord, our witness, our resting place, our asylum, and our friend. as the Bhagavad Gita tells us, though it can become our enemy if we war against it. If we have an allegiance to the lower self and its desires, we need to understand this fact. When Krishna, speaking as the higher self, says in the Gita that whenever there's a decline of righteousness and an ascendance of immorality, that he is born for the protection of the good and the ending of wickedness. Of course, this does not just refer to the world, but also to the individual. Our higher self will always come to our rescue if we have the right kind of faith. As above, so below. That statement could also be used regarding the solar system, universe, etc. Robert Crosby, an early theosophist, wrote about the power of the 59th minute of the 11th hour, meaning that if we have faith, enlightened faith, not blind faith, in our higher selves, that no matter how dark our lives are at times, at the very last moment, something will come along to shine a light into that darkness and to help us and to inspire us and uplift us. It is like the light at the end of the tunnel. But the illumination must come from within. And the illumination comes from beyond all these troubles that vex just the personal self. Beyond all this, there is eternal calm and peace. For the majority of people, the idea of the higher self never enters their consciousness, and for many others, it remains an intellectual concept. To actually take the stance of the higher self is a rarity in modern society. Yet all of us have the opportunity to become what we are beyond the labeling, to realize our true potential, and also to realize that we are not creatures of a day, but immortal beings and denizens of eternity. There is a process of awakening, a divine discontent with the status quo, and a desire to seek permanence in the midst of the inner and outer changes that we all go through. Change is often accompanied by suffering. Once we become aware of our impermanence, and before we have realized our immortality, there may be a period when we go through a kind of dark night of the soul, when we become downcast as a result of our material goods and our reliance upon material goods and our earthly thoughts, because they do not provide the sustenance that we really need, the permanent sustenance that we really need. Our physical mortality becomes very apparent, and we cry out to our higher self to reveal to us our true nature. The cry may be conscious or unconscious at first, but in time, we are given the option to take our progress in hand and to forge our own destiny. We are our own saviours. It is true that all the poetry and music in our lives, all the compassion and love, all the hope and optimism, joy and comfort in dark times comes from the higher self. That is how it speaks to us. It is beautiful to contemplate that there is this unfailing wellspring of love and light in our lives that can never die once we awaken to it. The language of the soul comes to us through intimations of our immortality and the bliss that we feel at times in just being alive, in spite of the difficulties we encounter in our pilgrimage back to our true self. The voice of the silence again says, "Have perseverance as one who doth for evermore endure. Thy shadows, personal selves, live and vanish. That which is in thee shall live forever. That which in thee knows for it is knowledge, is not a fleeting life, 'tis the man that was, that is, and will be, for whom the hour will never strike. I'll repeat that. Have perseverance as one who doth for evermore endure. Thy shadows live and vanish. That which in thee shall live forever, that which in thee knows, for it is knowledge, is not a fleeting life. 'Tis the man that was, that is, and will be, for whom the hour will never strike. These words from the voice of the silence are worth meditating upon. In fact, I think every verse from that work can be meditated upon. In the West, we use many words which fill up the intellect and give us some satisfaction, like a good meal. But do they help us to awaken to the self? Too much of them, like a good meal, can give us indigestion, mental indigestion. In the East, particularly in China and Japan, the silence or the space is more important than the words or images. This is because they are pointers to our own experiences and meditations and what is written. And we're led to meditate on the words and go beyond them. As Plato says, all learning or true learning is merely recollection. We're just remembering what we already know. To awaken to our true self, we need to assign words and images to their correct place on the journey and understand that it is in letting go of the knowledge that we have gained wherein lies the path to true understanding. It's a paradox, because without that knowledge, we would be unable to reach the point where we can dispense with it. As the Mahachohan says in his letter, all of us have to get rid of our own ego, the illusory, apparent self, to recognize our true self in a transcendental, divine life. A transcendental, divine life. We only die when we shut out the light of the higher self. We die to what we truly are in reality. But it is not the finality of death that materiality believes in. It is just one more illusion in the countless illusions that give us a mistaken view of what life and death truly are. As said, death is an awakening to a more profound and illuminating insight into what life truly is. There's only life. Death is just a construct created by a world in which spirituality has gradually been shut out of the human mind and replaced by a nihilistic view of existence. HPB wrote, "Happy those of its warriors, by whom death is regarded as a tender and merciful mother. She rocks her sick children into sweet sleep on her cold, soft bosom. But to awaken them a moment after, healed of all ailing, happy, and with a tenfold reward for every bitter sigh or tear. Post-mortem oblivion of every evil, to the smallest, is the most blissful characteristic of the paradise we believe in. Yes, oblivion of pain and sorrow, and the vivid recollection only, nay, once more, the living over of every happy moment of our terrestrial drama. And if no such moment ever occurred in one's life, in one's sad life, then the glorious realization of every legitimate, well-earned, yet unsatisfied desire we ever had. As true as life itself, and intensified 77 times sevenfold." That's a bit like what Rumi said in a much simpler way about you awaken to laughing to what you thought was your grief. So Theosophy has much to say to us that is helpful in our daily lives. It helps us to cope with many things that preoccupy the minds of a lot of people. The fear of death is one of these. People shy away from it. My parents and other people I know would tell me what to do if they died, not when they died. Well, we know full well that we will die, or this body that we have will be cast off. And I'd just like to finish with something that it says in the Bhagavad Gita, quite a long quote, but it says everything. "Thou grievest where no grief should be. Thou speakest words lacking wisdom. For the wise in heart mourn not for those that live, nor those that die. Nor I, nor thou, nor any one of these ever was, nor ever will not be. For ever and ever afterwards, all that doth live, lives always. To man's frame, as there comes infancy and youth and age, so come their raising up and layings down of other life abodes, which the wise know and fear not. This that irks, thy sense life, thrilling to the elements, bringing the heat and cold, sorrows and joy. 'Tis brief and mutable. Bear with it, Prince, as the wise bear. The soul which is not moved, the soul that with a strong and constant calm takes sorrow and takes joy indifferently, lives in the life undying. That which is can never cease to be. That which is not will not exist. To see this truth of both is theirs who part essence from accident, substance from shadow, indestructible, learn thou. The life is, spreading life through all. It cannot anywhere by any means be anywise diminished, stayed or changed. But for these fleeting frames which it informs, with spirit deathless, endless, infinite, they perish. Let them perish. Never the spirit was born. The spirit shall cease to be never. Never was time it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit forever. Death hath not touched it at all. Dead, though the house of it seems. Nay, but as when one layeth his worn-out robes away, and taketh new ones, saith, These will I wear today, so putteth by the Spirit lightly its garb of flesh, and passeth to inherit a residence afresh. I say to thee, weapons reach not the life, flames burn it not, waters cannot overwhelm, nor dry winds wither it. Impenetrable, unentered, unassailed, unharmed, untouched, immortal, all arriving, stable, sure, invisible, ineffable by word and thoughts, uncompassed, ever all itself. Thus is the soul declared. How wilt thou then, knowing it so, grieve when thou shouldst not grieve? So as it says in the voice of the silence, and I mentioned earlier, have perseverance as one who doth for evermore endure. Om Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. Namaste to you all. Spirit in me greets the spirit in you. May we all unite in peace, love and harmony for the good of all. Thank you. See you again soon.